good evening to those who are joining us online or in other parts of the world. Thank you for joining us and for waiting as we were setting up our tech equipment so we can stream for our members who are joining us around the world. So on behalf of Ecumenical Women at the United Nations, co-chairs Rebecca Trust and Reverend Dion Bossier, and the entire leadership team, John Capel, Kathleen Kefa, and all the other EW members, we want to welcome you today, especially with my fellow co-lead in the Ecumenical Women Orientation Team, Major Victoria Edmonds, who has been instrumental in setting up also this event. So thank you, and before I forget, thank you to those online and Darren Kent who is helping us virtually as well. My name is Christine Mangale. I'm with the Lutheran World Federation and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And we welcome you today as part of Ecumenical Women Coalition. Ecumenical Women was founded in 2000 on the creation of the 5-year review of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The main aim was to enhance and enforce collaboration of progressive churches and ecumenical organizations to advocate for the rights of women and girls at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. And so we've been coming to CSW, bring delegations to advocate here, and then our members continue the work back home in the countries that we belong to. So every CSW, for those of you who are joining us, annually, you know we hold 2 parallel events, Girls on Fire. These are, yes, I need some noise. I was trying to be proper, not to be completely Kenyan, because we are so quiet. But every CSW, we come together the first Thursday and the second Thursday for our Girls on Fire events. And these are intergenerational conversations and call to action to link up to end gender-based violence. And so today we have an amazing panel and a round table, and our speakers will explore the themes of accessibility, education in the digital age, and human rights, safety, and security of women and girls, which are Ecumenical Women's advocacy priorities for CSW 7. So I won't take too much of your time. I want you to join me in welcoming our speakers for today, and it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator of the day, Patricia Kistani. Patricia serves as the International Policy Advisor for both the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and the Episcopal Church, advocating to the U.S. government in Washington, D.C. Her portfolio of priority issues include gender justice, food security, global health, human rights, conflict prevention, and peace building, development, and humanitarian assistance. Prior to this position, Patricia served as the Legislative Associate for International Affairs for Mennonite Central Committee, USA, where she led policy advocacy work on similar issues as well as Africa's regional concern. She has also worked as a research assistant for the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in Arusha, Tanzania. Right now, also Patricia in the past served as ELCA's representative on the Act Alliance, a reference group on advocacy and policy. So she holds a master's degree in international affairs from the Pennsylvania State University and a Bachelor of Arts in International Studies from also Pennsylvania. So I went to all these lengths because we are in good hands, and it is International Women's Month. Yesterday we were celebrating women. So the topic, just so you know who our moderator is, and then there are basic comments and following up. So up to you, Patricia, now over to you.
Thank you, Christine. I'm really excited to moderate this panel. We're going to cover a lot, and I know it's after lunch.
because the topics we're going to cover are going to be quite broad, but also sometimes intense. So we have, like Christine mentioned, we have the panel, and then we call up our young adults to come in the second session of the time here. I will begin with introducing our panelists. One person is going to join online. Yes, so I'll just read their bios for each one, and then we'll just get into the questions that we have prepared for them. The first person that I will introduce to you, her name is Nala Owens. She's the one joining us online. Nala is from Houston and is a passionate advocate for racial justice, gender equality, and equity in education. She has conducted research with the American Civil Liberties Union to minimize racial disparities in schools and has crafted anti-racist policy recommendations utilizing the research results. On the national stage, she has advocated for Black women and girls as the Gen Z coordinator for Black Women for Biden and Black Women for Positive Change, founding a mentorship program for high school students and helping to raise over $90,000 for the organizations. She also has a lot of experience with CSW. She has collaborated with different people. One of the organizations she's part of is the International Day of the Girls Summit and the Working Group on Girls. So, Nala, thank you for joining us today. And I'll just say at this point, the biographical information is truncated. These folks here have done so many things, we can't mention all of them. So you're welcome to chat with everyone at the end of our time. The second person I will introduce to you is here with us physically, Dr. X. I'm going to try to say your name correctly, Dr. Xerox Rivera. A native of Bronx here in New York, and a graduate of Manhattan College with a double master's degree in counseling and mental health counseling. A very proud HBCU graduate. She attended Livingston College in North Carolina with a major in liberal arts and English. Initially, with the dream of becoming a journalist, Dr. X quickly realized her life calling was going in another direction. So in 2019, she was conferred her third master's degree from Wharton University in philosophy. She currently works as the vice president of shelter services at Bronx Parents Housing in New York. Her primary clients are families with children that are experiencing with homelessness, as well as severely mentally ill or drug addicted. She completed a doctoral work at Wharton University with a concentration in social policy analysis and plan. Is also a contributing author of the book Ministry That Unites. And then our other panelist is Reverend Zelda Costa of Lutheran World Federation. She's one of the first ordained pastor at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Mozambique. She has been a parish pastor for over 6 years now in the rural Gaza province. Reverend Zelda is a gender justice activist within the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Mozambique and LUPSA, the national coordinator of the Women Theologians Forum in Mozambique. She is currently serving as project coordinator for Economic Justice Project at the Christian Council of Churches in Mozambique. Please help me welcome our panelists. So our panelists will have 3 minutes to answer each question that I pose to them. I'm going to start with Nala. Hi there. This is open up. The question I have to all of you, and I'll give all of you a time to respond. How does digital transformation and technological innovation impact or benefit women and girls in your community?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And first, I just want to thank you all for having me. I believe I'm the youngest person in this part of the program, so I really appreciate you all. But as you mentioned, my research focuses primarily on organizational leadership, neuroscience, and psychology. And I think that perspective gives me a great lens to understand the societal impact that these kinds of things can have. If I leave you all with one thing today, I want to emphasize that values and innovation are indivisible in the technical world. Every algorithm carries with it the biases that those in leadership bring to their creation spaces. Just as our religious values are indivisible from our social activism and feelings of social responsibility and stewardship, more sinister roots of racism, sexism, and the like can undergird platforms as widely popularized as Google and Facebook, particularly in the realm of artificial intelligence. This is why I see it as so essential to see women who look like you and like me represented in leadership in these spaces. While at the CSW in person earlier this week, I had the privilege of seeing the women around me as the agents of change, the decision makers, and the leaders. And I hope that we can recreate these spaces using two primary mechanisms. Firstly, education, as is a primary theme this year. Making education and digital skill building more accessible with a targeted and incentivized approach is key to achieving this goal. Organizations that work with young people like Black Girls Code have aimed to equip Black girls with the technical knowledge and computer science with pedagogies that also center collaboration, leadership, and community. We know that this dual approach of technical skills and non-cognitive education works based on metrics we have for leadership development, like the leadership efficacy scale or the social responsibility scale. And secondly, we need to not only bring women into these spaces, but make sure that they're comfortable enough to lead when they arrive. With this, we can provide intra-organizational affinity groups where, once again, we can see ourselves reflected in the spaces around us. We also need to have co-determination and stake in the spaces that we hold. German models encourage employees to be able to vote in a certain percentage of shareholders or leadership in any corporations that are functioning. Additionally, we need protection from gender-based violence and anonymous reporting for those who are impacted. And once again, I'll just leave you all with this sentiment that all women and girls deserve to take their space and lead, if not only for the purposes of their own fulfillment and development, for the benefit that their perspectives provide in technological spaces. Through non-cognitive education and organizational affinity support, I hope that we together can come from our NGO backgrounds and our governmental backgrounds and our religious backgrounds to achieve these goals. And I appreciate you all listening.
Gerda, let me come back to you with the same question. For us, as LWF and the Lutheran Church in Mozambique, the digital transformation of technological innovation has both positive and negative impact and benefits within the community. Though it is a way to go for those who can use it positively and effectively, it's highly encouraged. So we also have a negative way. We've seen people using technology or digital to abuse women and girls, taking video of them, most of the time being beaten up by men, and then they will share it until it becomes viral. And most of the times they are boys and girls doing so.
I would go ahead and agree with both the panelists. Technology and the advances of technology, I think, is a beautiful tool to use. And I do agree that occupying certain spaces allow us to have a seat at the table and be part of the conversation. I also agree that, okay, got you. I also agree that it can be a negative tool as well, right? Because, like you said, with the algorithms or the things or how we portray women in these spaces where a lot of us spend our time can have an overall impact on where we see ourselves, how we're going to continue to go. So I think that just being mindful of the dangers of these technology advances or innovation is one thing, but also understanding how it can be used to benefit us in workspaces, in church spaces, in personal spaces, as well as, and just pairing it with our overall growth. So I think it's a pro and a con to it.
Thank you. I can already see the connective themes here, no matter where you're coming from. The second question is for you, Nala. What opportunities exist for women of color in science and technology? You may have touched a little bit on this already, but what ideological or tangible obstacles have you experienced? And are we heading in the right direction toward a better inclusion of women and girls in technology from your perspective?
Yeah, great question. And just reiterating what you all said earlier, we need women in these spaces because whether we like it or not, the technology that's being developed is going to have consequences and it's going to carry the biases of those who are creating it, whether or not we have a seat at the table. I think the challenge then becomes I think collectively recognize that women deserve their space and they need to take up space. But what we have been less successful in doing is ensuring that women feel adequately supported and are able to actually exercise their power in those spaces. I recently was at a meeting with the Interparliamentary Union, and they did a survey of women journalists across the globe, and they found that for fear of gender-based violence or online harassment, over 40% of women journalists did not feel as though they could adequately report their stories and were censoring themselves. And I feel that the same can be true in technological spaces. So I think we need to not only work on developing women and girls as leaders, as organizations like Black Girls Code and Girls Who Code do. I think that on the other side of organizational leadership, we need to take into account the measures that are essential to protect women in these leadership spaces, like anonymous reporting, like creating affinity groups, and like creating pathways to promotion from some of these more entry-level positions that we love to see our women and girls in, but we also would love to see them progressing up the ranks to be in positions of power that can help them to influence not only the algorithms that we're seeing, but the policies that will govern them. So I think it's really a twofold approach of making sure we have a seat at the table, but also making sure that we're not on the menu, as one of my mentors likes to say, and making sure that we have the power to exercise in those spaces.
Great, thanks for that answer. So my next question is to you, Dr. X. What gaps exist in addressing mental health and psychosocial well-being, girls and women, and what are the main challenges you're seeing today? And then the second part of that question is, what role does telehealth play in diagnosis, treatment, and care?
All right, so this is a good one. Women Universal have let me not say it like that. They are conditioned to work, right? We're mothers, we're sisters, we're cousins, like we're conditioned to just keep going, right? And therefore we typically shy away from self-care, which typically shies away from you being more aware of your own mental health and own mental illness or well-being. So one thing I always tell people in general, but particularly women, is everybody has mental health, right? Because we all have some level of cognition, well-being. However, it can roll over into mental illness, and you can be subconsciously doing this because you're conditioned to take care of other people, right? So just in knowledge or understanding of that, you have to understand that you have to take an intentional approach in taking care of yourself. I know everybody's like, yes, right? Because we don't do that, right? We just don't do that. And so therefore, there's a bunch of challenges as it relates to women's mental health, women going to the doctor, taking care of themselves. Not to mention, when you look at the history of mental health, it started off with women. I didn't know if I knew that part. But if you ever go all the way back, when they start talking about the term Luna, right, which follows the full moon system, the history of mental health was only women. Only women, when mental health first started, was the ones that were witched or possessed or whatever. So now when you take this years later, we're definitely not going to the doctor now, right? Because we don't want anybody to think that way or have those stereotypes that will automatically be added to us. So we typically avoid it. So I think that for women in particular, you have to be very intentional. You have to be very mindful in understanding that you're not a superhuman. You're great at it though. I think you're a superhero, but you're not a superhuman, right? So therefore you have to take care of yourself. Now the problem with telehealth is that as a mental health clinician, there are some things I have to see in your nonverbal cues, which I may not be able to gather on Zoom or on online, right? Because online you're sitting up straight and I see from here up, right? So I'm not seeing you tapping your leg while you're talking to me about that. I'm not seeing you fidget with your hands, which are all necessary to give you a valid diagnosis or to prescribe you anything that's necessary. The side part of that also as it relates to therapy is we don't want the stigma of it. We don't want to be seen as a lunatic, right? That's the history part of it. You don't want to be seen as crazy. Therefore, you avoid these options that are available to you. So telehealth can also misdiagnose you. That was the point of that. But you have to be mindful in it. I think the more education that you do on mental health and or mental illness, the better equipped you'll be when you go into therapy. Because I also say to persons, well, to women in particular, finding a therapist is almost like speed dating. Sounds horrible, right? But it is, because you kind of have to find a match. Every therapist is not equipped for whatever you might be dealing with, or some of them are faith-based, right? And some people want the boundary of being able to vent in one space but go to church in another space, right? So you might not want a faith-based therapist, you might want somebody else. And all of them specialize in different theories and approaches that may work for you. So in doing that, it'll be harder for you to determine that in telehealth or in any type of virtual setting, which would then require you to go in and meet the person. But I do want to encourage everybody to be intentional. If you didn't look at anything else I said today, be intentional and mindful of your self-care. Because I don't believe that you can pour from a full glass. I believe that you can pour from a glass that's overflowing.
Wow. I need to let that sink in for a minute. I mean, I know, I'll just commentary here. I know a lot of us, even in the churches, overextend ourselves and probably are the worst at this. So thank you for that reminder. I'm hearing a lot of amen, but
I had a lot of head nod. Yes, that's me.
Zelda, to you. This question is a little long, but my question is, while digital tools can challenge lives for the better, do they also have risks? Maybe connected to the previous question. So that's the first part. And the second part to that question is, how are faith communities combating social issues like sexual and gender-based violence using digital tools, and or when that harassment or violence is on the digital tool through the internet?
We have faced so many obstacles with those women and girls who do not have phones to communicate. What LWF and the Lutheran Church in Mozambique did was to create safe space for dialogue and for them to come and report. And we have people within the community and within the church who have been trained by LWF as peer educators. So those are the safe people, and they work very closely with the pastor to ensure that these girls and women are listened to and are counseled to. So it depends. We deal with case by case, and we give them advice according to their problems that they come with. Most of women and girls are abused by very close family members and community leaders. We do have boxes as one of the mechanisms for complaining, where people write down, because some people are not able to talk about their elders in the community, but they can write about those issues and they can bring it to the boxes. And these boxes are open every 2 weeks. As you may know, in African tradition, women and girls respect the elders, and they cannot speak out easily about what they are going through and what these elders are doing to them. Girls on fire because when the girls are pregnant, they're the ones who go under church disciplinary. The boys, the church doesn't care about the boys, and they don't even look for them. Yeah. And most of the time, the girls are the ones who go to early marriage, and sometimes to save the family. Maybe there are issues in the family, so the girl should get married so that then they can pay the lobola, we call it dowry. Yes, so that then the family they can have something to feed themselves. Children are the one who also get the early pregnancy. Sometimes to elder people and sometimes even to very close family members.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting those issues. It's such a universal story. I feel like I was just in Bangladesh and meeting with displaced population from Myanmar living in the refugee camp. You know, you hear the same kind of stories that you share here today. So just a good reminder. The next question is to you all. Now we'll go back to you first and also back. How are you and other faith actors or institutions working collaboratively toward addressing these issues that we have identified here today?
Yeah, to start by responding to that, I think that the most effective interventions take place locally because there's no one who understands the needs of your community better than you. So on Harvard's campus, where I'm currently studying, we have a group called Harvard College Faith in Action with a social action committee. So in terms of leadership development and bringing women and girls into these spaces where they'll have access to innovation and technology, we do mentorship at local schools. And I think that providing images of these faith-based women who are going out and actively doing their best to make the world a more positive and more just place provides them with the example that they need to pursue that for themselves. So I think that starting with local groups, whether it's your Bible study or just your neighborhood group of friends, and finding that community need is essential. And for us, we found that was the mentorship that we had to offer, in addition to, for example, we have sessions called Politics Through Prayer, where we take particular issues that are of importance to us, for example, gender-based violence or recent really strife elections. And we work with each other, regardless of kind of where we stand politically, to pray through those issues and to come with a mindset of caring for our community. So I think that those are the actions that I've seen be really effective where I am right now, but I would love to hear some additional ideas from the lovely ladies on the panel of what other actions are being taken in addition to these kind of general social responsibility measures and community or coalition structures for addressing these issues.
Thank you.
So for me, I do it more on a personal level, but I can put it into the church world. So I started a nonprofit called I Am She that is focused on the advancement of minority women and girls because of the issues that happen like on technology in the work world, where we're constantly put down or we're constantly, we are trained to be competition to each other rather than using each other to build each other up. So I decided to create a safe space where women are able to network together and have that level of sisterhood, healing, and empowerment. That's what the SHE stands for, and I Am She. I do think with that, it'll branch off into other spaces, such as when they go into church or when they go into work and things of that nature. From a work perspective, I'm very intentional about hiring women leaders. And I'm very intentional about pushing leaders, women in particular, into new spaces. The other thing that we typically do is we settle. So I try to make sure that women understand that you can go exactly after what he's going for. You have the same seat that he might have at the table or more. So I try to make sure I'm intentional in pushing that. In the church world, I want to say that I push my mom a lot because she happens to be the first pastor, first female pastor of a church in our district, in our area. So I typically work through her where I'm trying to get her to go more in the community and push people more effectively. And I think that's a good start from the local level. So she does small things like branch out to homeless shelters. And she used to work for teenage girls who were trying to motivate and build from that point in the religious space.
So for us in Mozambique, as a church, we are not working in silos. As the church is within the community, so the community is informed. That's why we have PA educators that are part from the community and also from the church, so that we work together, because the church is part of the community and is within the community. That's why we have all these complaint mechanisms that we have brought into the church in the congregations where the church is, so that we work more effectively to reach people together.
Thank you. Those are all wonderful responses. My last question to our wonderful panel is to all of you again, how can governments advance really tangible, sustainable solutions in their communities, ensuring that no one is left behind? I know it's a loaded question, but welcome your thoughts on this. Let's start with you, Reverend.
So the government is the big umbrella, and it has got a huge responsibility to see what is happening within the community, and that they want to put the policy in place, and this policy should be followed. They want to protect the community, and only the community, the law enforcement, and the barriers.
Thank you. Nara?
Yeah, sure. Just once again, reemphasizing that comment, I think community connection is essential. Just having conversations with the people who you might pass by on the street and not particularly notice, inviting them to community activities, whether that be in your church, to better understand the needs of those around you and coming from a place of empathy in doing so. And I also think that one thing that we encounter quite often, especially with women and girls from underrepresented backgrounds who end up at places like Harvard, is that you don't even know that this is a possibility for you until someone says that it is. Even though we can emphasize that we are fearfully made and created in the image of the Most High, it is sometimes so hard to imagine yourself in places where you haven't seen someone like you before. So I think re-emphasizing and empowering young women and girls to be able to take on these places and to once again know that they are made to pursue these goals and pursue community action is the way that we can make sure that people aren't left behind and us not being aware of their needs, and then also making sure that we're pushing forward those and bringing people along with us when we have access to places like the CSW or places where we're able to share our voice and voice our needs.
And of course, with you, Dr. X.
I was going to say they think most of my answers, but I have to agree with both of them, right? I think the main part is, give them a seat at the table. There's a lot of spaces that you may not see the same person that looks like you, but that's okay, right? You become that person that you want to see at the table. So I think just give them a seat at the table. I think that I know a lot of people don't like this term of ceiling glass effect or the ceiling glass, but I try to be a big ceiling glass breaker, right? So I think that I agree with both panelists that sometimes people don't go for something because they didn't know. And I think that education and knowledge is key, right? Because this is the good part about technology, that we can find out anything at our fingertips, right? So I think if we use it in that regard, either get a seat at the table or create your own table.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to Reverend Zelda and Dr. X for your responses and your engagement here. And thank you for your attention for first round. Can you give a round of applause to? Yeah, so we're going to transition now to a roundtable of the young adults. It's going to be real quickly. No. Great. All right, how are we feeling? Good. Good. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce our roundtable participants in the same way as what I did with the panelists. I will start to the far end. Yes. So on my left, your right, is Ashley. She's originally from Indonesia. Is the recipient of Evangelical Lutheran Church in America International Women Leaders Scholarship. This scholarship has allowed her to become an example for other young women in her home church in Indonesia, inspiring them to pursue higher education and leadership roles. Asi is currently working towards her Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology and Anthropology and Gender and Sexuality Studies at St. Olaf's College. Her interest in studying sociology / anthropology stems from her desire to examine and understand social life and cultural practices. Pairing that with gender and sexuality studies allows her to have the training and education she needs to be a better advocate for gender equality throughout her higher education career. Welcome. And then our next participant is Berit Lolo. She's from Kenya. From Salvation Army in Kenya. She is currently a master's student studying monitoring and evaluation. She is passionate about social justice, especially issues that girls face. Lolo represents Kenya East as a girl advocate in the International Social Justice Girls. As a girl advocate, she participates in the conversations about social justice issues facing girls and how they can be champions as girls to address these issues. She has experience as a project coordinator and social worker with the Salvation Army Kenya East Territory. She advocates for health, safety, and protection of children with disability in the Salvation Army special schools, corps, and communities. Welcome, Lolo. And the next participant, January, is from Ecuador. She studied nurse technology because she likes helping people. She considers herself a strong person to face difficult situations. Since she was little, her parents have taught her to have a bold voice, defend those who need it, and have instructed her in leadership. January trusts God, who has given her virtues and gifts that she can put into practice in different and adverse situations, and that God will use her to help in His work. Welcome, January. I'm so excited to have you guys here. I'm going to ask you kind of similar questions, and knowing that you have different level of experiences from our previous panelists. So let me start with a similar question I asked our panelists earlier. How does digital transformation and technological innovation impact women or benefit women and girls in your community from your experience? As you understand that?
Sure, yes. So I'm from Indonesia, and there's two things that comes to mind for me. Indonesia is a very patriarchal society, so there are a lot of girls and women don't necessarily feel that they have the space to speak out. But I think in the past few years with digital transformation and the internet use, a lot more women and girls have more access to technology and the internet, actually a lot more than their men and boys counterpart. And so therefore that allows them tools, that allows them to be able to find their own voice and speak out, just even like little things, you know, like, hey, I want a sandwich or something like that. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but even small things are important. And the second is in our society in Indonesia, there's a big emphasis of opening up businesses. Our nation kind of focuses on, you know, business equals economy. And so a lot of people, a lot of younger generations aspire to own their own business, want to open their own business as their dreams, but it's really hard to do that. And then when technology arrives, a lot of girls, a lot of women, I personally learn how to do things from the internet, for example, to create their own cakes or bakes and then use those tools from the internet to sell things and therefore create businesses. And I know a girl who did that and then she opened her own shop and now she's an entrepreneur. And it's things like that that empower girls to feel that they can and are allowed to dream big.
Wow, that's great.
For me, I'm focused mostly on education for girls with disabilities because I think this is a special category of individuals who we don't talk about their needs. Access to technology in some of the special schools has proven to be a great opportunity for the transition of learners. So you find that those students who are able to have access to some of the assistive technology have proven to have the ability to go far in their education. So as I speak on behalf of the girls, I feel like if these girls have the opportunity to have access to some of this technology, they have that opportunity to have a good transition into their education life. So if they have these technologies, one, they'll be able to read, they'll be able to write, they'll be able to communicate and also share information with others. Hence, they feel part of us, since most of the time they are neglected because they are not in a position to fit because of that gap. So I feel like if we include them into our programs to ensure that most of our information, even that most of the information, let's say, I'm sure majority of us here are authors. Maybe if we make most of our writings accessible to them, our website accessible to them, they will fit into the society very well. Thank you.
Buenas tardes con todos los presentes. Good afternoon to everyone. Yo voy a hablar por el sector rural de Ecuador. I'm going to talk about the rural sector of Ecuador. Yo he tenido el privilegio de poder conocer muchos lugares en mi país. I've had the wonderful opportunity to learn and get to know many places in my country. He podido vivir en las grandes ciudades y actualmente me encuentro en un sector indígena que es un pueblo muy pequeño en mi país. I've lived in big cities in my country, and at the moment I currently live in a rural area where a lot of indigenous peoples live. La forma en que se marcan estos dos sectores es muy fuerte. The difference that you can see between these two sectors is very distinct. Cuando tú vas a la ciudad puedes ver a las personas con su laptop, con su teléfono,
when you go to the city, you see people with their laptop, with their cell phone, pero cuando llegas a la parte rural te das cuenta que ellos están muy privados de la tecnología. But when you go to the rural sector, you realize that people are very, very private with this type of technology. Entonces, no hay equidad en la igualdad para las personas con la tecnología. It's not accessible, so you notice that there's not equity in access to technologies within these two sectors. Y no es porque la gente no sepa las cosas, simplemente no le hacen llegar a. And it's not that people don't know about these technologies, it's just that it doesn't reach the sectors where they're living. Entonces ellos también empiezan a cerrar sus mentes y a pensar que la tecnología no les puede ayudar mucho y también lo hacen en el pasado, pero en realidad este tipo de tecnología puede ayudar de gran manera cuando ellos se dan cuenta. So a lot of people will start to close their mindset and think that this technology actually won't help them when it actually can have really positive benefits. But just because there isn't as much accessibility, people close their minds off. Cuando estas personas ven llegar a alguien que les puede enseñar, tiene la intención de enseñar sobre este tipo de tecnología. And when people arrive to talk about these different technologies to people, ellos se dan cuenta que realmente tienen una oportunidad grande, pero es como que les limitan, hacen preferencia a la persona. They realize that there's a great opportunity to learn, but there's also, they see that there's a preference for certain people. Las personas de las ciudades tienen la misma necesidad que las personas rurales, pero no pueden seguir estando. Las personas del área rural pueden avanzar y ellos lo saben, pero tienen miedo de decirlo, tienen miedo de que otras personas sepan que ellos necesitan. No quieren pedir ayuda. People don't want to ask for help. They realize that these technologies can help them, but there is a lot more privacy and wanting to reach out and let people know that this is something that they need and asking for help. That people need technology in the city and rural area, and just as much as technology is needed and can be of use in rural areas. Ellos piensan que si no lo han escuchado antes, no lo van a hacer ahora. And that a lot of the rural communities, their voices aren't heard or are forgotten, and they feel like if they speak up now, it won't make much of a difference because that didn't make a difference in the past. Las mujeres, las jóvenes de la ciudad tienen gran potencial y ellos lo saben, pero se están estancando, no les permiten dejar de ser. So that, yes, women and children are they close themselves off from opportunities to continue to grow and develop and learning about these and using these technologies. Y hablo por ellas porque ellas necesitan esta tecnología porque ellos pueden desarrollar muchas cosas en el área ganadera o en el área capitalizada. And I speak for the women because they can really use this in many ways, not only for development on their farms, but also to continue to gain capital.
All very distinctive answers that are very connected and really appreciate those experiences. So the next question I want to ask is maybe to Asi. We'll start with you. What kind of technological risks do you see, and how are faith communities combating social issues like sexual and gender-based violence are using these digital tools that we've been talking about here?
So the first question about digital risk, so I mentioned earlier that the internet has helped a lot of women and girls to be more outspoken. Unfortunately, the risk that comes with this is that to them, internet is social media, and that's all that is to it. When coming here to the United States, I realized that technology is a lot more than actually we can use for our education, and that we as women can be part of creating that technology that was missing in our communities. That's one of the risks that we kind of forget, or at least in our community, we don't tell our girls and our women that the internet, tools is more than just to have fun and social media. It's something that can actually change your life within your career. And for the second question about combating issues like sexual and gender-based violence in our church, so I go to a church called HQB, which is the Father Christian Protestant Church in Indonesia. They have what is called in English Women's Crisis Center. And this is a project that was done in collaboration with the LCR, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, to help women kind of a safe space for women to come in and to ask for counsel, for help, those who experience gender-based violence. And if they feel that they're able to reach out, it's a safe space for women. And they have used digital tools to be able to reach out to these women. So that's at least one way that I see that my church has helped women in that community.
Thank you. And a lot of same question from your experience in Kenya.
Okay, for me, how we are addressing the issues to ensure that girls have access to technology is through sensitization. One, having been part of some of the Salvation Army programs that deals with persons living with disabilities, we try to advocate so that the community are aware of the needs of the girls. There are some we think that if they are aware that girls are supposed to be trained in school, they will be part of the process. And when, let's say, as a family, you are required maybe to purchase some of the assistive technologies to support the girl from his education, that is going to be easy. So for us, we do a lot of advocacy in the community. Yes.
Thank you. But if I may just follow up on that a little bit, what are some of the ways you're able to use that similar technology to deal with the issue of sexual and gender-based violence? Maybe you don't feel free to answer.
Okay, so for us, during our training of sensitization, we also let the girls know that how to use the technology. Yeah, and also if they face any issues or challenges like cyberbullying or sexism in their process, we have the reporting channels which we tell them what to do in case they experience such a thing. Yeah, so we have in some of the schools we have clubs which are called Rights of Children clubs, which we have patrons. So in case a child maybe experiences an issue towards his study, when he's using the technology, the patron can step into his house. Yeah.
Oh, wow, thank you. Generally, maybe you can respond to the same question.
Hablando también de las mujeres indígenas del país, talking about the indigenous women in my country, hay mucha discriminación en el Ecuador. There's a lot of discrimination in Ecuador. Piensan que el dinero hace a la persona. El dinero hace a la persona. Si yo tengo dinero, soy mejor que. Oh, the money is what makes a person. If you have more money, then you're a better person. Y la zona donde tú vives también hace a la persona. The type of place that you live, the zone in which you live in the country also gives you more status. Si ven en una universidad a una joven, le preguntan a ella, ella dice que es diferente mestizaje, de inmediatamente hay una discriminación. If you go up to a person and a young person at a university and ask them where they're from, and they express that they have, they're from an indigenous group, then they're immediately discrimination starts to begin. El ejército de salvación trabaja fuertemente en todas las áreas. The Salvation Army works very strongly in all of these areas. No hacemos exclusión de personas. We don't exclude anyone. Nosotros intentamos incluirnos en la comunidad y dar a conocer de que todos tenemos el mismo valor. We really try to work and be involved in the community and let people know that everyone has the same value. Tenemos un valor muy importante para Dios y ante la sociedad. We have a very important role for God and have a very important role in society. Ahí no importa cuánto dinero tienes o en qué zona en cuánto tú vives. It doesn't matter the amount of money that you have or the zone or area that you're from. Y ahí practicamos mucho lo que es la igualdad y la equidad. We really try to work on values of equality and equity. Pero sabemos igual que no es un trabajo fácil. But we also know that and understand that it's not an easy job. Tenemos que hablar mucho y dialogar mucho con las personas. We have to talk and be in dialogue with everyone. Porque a veces a las personas de un lugar diferente les cuesta creer que sí son importantes en otros sitios. That a lot of people will, it takes a lot for people to understand that they are very important, and that importance transitions wherever geographically they are. Porque son importantes para Dios. And that they are also important to God. Piensan que no tienen oportunidad como el resto. They might not think that they have opportunities like anyone else. Y incentivamos a que puedan conocer todas las jóvenes de que tenemos la misma oportunidad. And we want to incentivize kids that we work with to let them know that they have the same opportunities as others. Se rompen barreras and break these barriers. Y continuaremos trabajando and we'll continue working on this. Es muy importante para el Ecuador. It's really important to do this in Ecuador, but in the entire world as well.
Wonderful. I also want to hear your perspective on the question that I asked our panelists earlier, which is how can governments advance real tangible solutions in their communities, ensuring that no one is left behind? Let's start with Jerry. How can governments advance real tangible solutions in their communities, ensuring that no one is left behind?
En Ecuador. En Ecuador. Existe algo muy fuerte que impide que la sociedad pueda avanzar. There's a difficult problematic in the government of Ecuador that really inhibits people from advancing in society. Me he dado cuenta de que todo empieza desde arriba. And everything, I've realized that everything starts from above. A veces los mismos gobiernos ponen un alto a las oportunidades de otras personas, aunque intenten camuflarlo, incluyendo de una manera que es visible, que es forzada. So that the same government official will stop progress for certain people and then try to hide that, camouflage that by demonstrating that they are helping, but in a way that is very, very forced and not genuine. Cuando nosotros queremos, como iglesia, hacer de que esa inclusión sea más fuerte, when we as a church really strive to make sure that this inclusion is something that is strong in our society. Esperamos igual que de alguna manera el gobierno en la parte política nos pueda ayudar y colaborar con eso. We also hope that there can be collaboration with the government, that they can also work with us to ensure that this is a possibility.
Pero es muy difícil que ellos puedan escuchar.
But it's really difficult for governments to actually listen.
Al hablar, ¿qué quisiera yo para las mujeres indígenas, las mujeres de Ciudad Corazón, las jóvenes en general de mi país, es que puedan entender de que realmente somos parte de ello?
So what I would really hope for is that the Indigenous women, Indigenous girls in the community that I work with realize that they are important and of worth.
A veces solo escuchamos una campaña y nunca nos volvemos a escuchar lo mismo.
Sometimes we'll hear about a campaign that is working for something, but then we hear the word and then it's never heard about again.
El trabajo con la justicia social es algo continuo, porque uno tiene que estar escuchando y repitiendo para que así se pueda conocer la gente el valor que tiene.
The work for social justice isn't just a motto, it's something that you have to continue to work for, and that it really gets into the minds of people that they are of value and they do have worth.
Realmente quisiera que el gobierno ayude a todas las personas sin excepción, porque a veces también hacen excepción al pensar de que no ese sector es inalcanzable, nosotros es inaccesible, no podemos llegar fácilmente ahí y podemos ayudarlo. Entonces preferimos este sector de acá porque es mucho más sencillo entregar el apoyo.
We want the government to do this work without exception. That a lot of governments will say, yes, we can do this work, but it's not going to actually work in this sector. So we're going to focus on one sector distinctly. We won't actually ever go to this other sector and try to work for social justice. That this work can't just be something that is picked, nitpicked. That it has to be something that is inclusive of everyone.
Thank you so much. Laura, would you like to respond to the same question? You want to read it?
Okay, for me, I think it will be best for the government to integrate gender equality at the heart of education, sector plans, and budget, and also policies. And this can be achieved through inclusion of women and also girls with disability into the when they are formulating some of these policies, so that no one can be left behind. And also some of the inequalities and gaps that those with disability or us girls that we are facing can be addressed adequately. And also I think if the government invests on research in education and technology, some of these issues, they can come out clearly so that it can shape their intervention very well. Yes.
Yes.
I guess that's sort of obviously very fantastic. I think one thing I can add to that is that from my experience of understanding communities, a lot of communities seem like a lot of the government have a lot of policies in place, have a lot of programs in place, but they fail to reach out to the community, to their nation, to their citizens. And I think one tool that they can use is actually faith-based organizations. I think in a lot of countries, especially in like Indonesia, I see a lot of faith-based organizations like my own, like Federation, etc., really push to help people, and those words have been used from the CSW to grassroots. And particularly in Indonesia, there's a lot of the biggest population is the Muslim population, and so a lot of changes that's happening there, but they tend to forget other organizations and other religions, and so we are left behind because we don't follow that same religion. Again, this is my opinion, don't want to believe it, but yeah, I feel like they can reach out to, just not the organizations they think should be, but all different organizations, all different types of faith and communities, so that literally everyone in every corner of the world or every corner of the country will be heard.
Yeah, thank you. I'm noticing my time here. I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A. So I'm going to ask you the last question, and then we'll open up for Q&A from our audience. So my question is, if the General Secretary of the United Nations came to this meeting, what would you suggest he pushes as a moral imperative to support and empower women around the world? Sorry. Do you want me to repeat it? Okay.
Not good.
Oh, somebody else is concerned about it. Sorry. General, maybe we'll start with you. The question is, if the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres came into this meeting, and you have 2 minutes to say something to him, what one policy would you suggest he pushes as a moral imperative to support and empower women around the world?
Las jóvenes por lo general tienen que esforzarse mucho para que ellas puedan ser el reflejo de su familia.
The children often have to really push themselves and put a lot of pressure on themselves to for the sake of their families.
Tienen que educar a sus hermanos o los hijos de los hermanos, de los padres, se encargan de todo.
The kids take care of siblings. Kids have to they have to do a lot in their family.
Y eso ocurre en las ciudades o en el área rural.
And this is something that happens both in the cities as well as rural communities.
Pero tienen un inconveniente, es que ellas no la ayudan, no las ayudan.
The difficult part is that governments don't necessarily help them.
Los padres le tiran el peso encima a los jóvenes, pero no les brindan el apoyo para que ellos puedan realizarlo.
The parents also put a lot of pressure on their kids to do a lot, but they don't give the support that is needed to say you can do this. It's just a lot of pressure and not as much support.
Eso trae muchos desbalances para los jóvenes, niñas y adolescentes porque sienten una presión a temprana edad y al final terminan desesperando.
So they feel this pressure, kids feel this pressure at a very early age, and after just feeling constant pressure and not as much support, they start to become hopeless.
Y entonces, ¿quién las va a ayudar?
And so who's going to help them?
Quisiera que si estuviera aquí pedirle por esas personas, porque el Ecuador en sí necesita mucha ayuda para que puedan concientizar a los padres, porque no hemos de ver solo de las niñas.
They also, so Ecuador could use a lot of help, and I speak on the behalf of all of those kids, that there needs to be a lot more consciousness raising within the parents to support their kids, especially their young girls.
Y también tiene que concientizar sobre el área de discriminación.
There also needs to be a lot of consciousness raising regarding discrimination.
Porque bien el trabajo es mucho más forzado en el área rural.
And because there's also a lot of, the work is a lot harder in rural areas.
Pero sigue siendo un trabajo para las niñas de la ciudad.
But it's also something that is seen for girls in the city.
Y no es bueno que ellas continúen ejerciendo algo que no es su deber.
And this isn't something that should continue to happen.
Apoyo mucho la idea de que cada hombre quiera progresar, pero necesitamos ayuda para hacerlo.
That all of us want to progress, all of us want to move forward, we need help to do that.
Las niñas, jóvenes y adolescentes no podemos realizar este trabajo solos. Nosotras progresamos, pero nos esforzamos, pero necesitamos un apoyo.
Yes, young girls, we have a lot of passion, we have a lot of fire behind us, but we need some help to actually move that forward. I would ask them to do this.
Beautiful, thank you, Laura.
For me, I feel like most of the girls, especially the ones with disability, they go through a lot. But they have platforms where they can raise their voices and be heard. For those who were able to join one of our events yesterday, we were able to show how big digital design was one way. And I feel like if such forums like what the foundation provided for us, where girls from different countries we come together and share our experiences and some of the inequalities that other girls face. Some of these inequalities will be addressed. So for me, I will advocate for a platform where we girls, women, and even persons with disabilities can air our voices and be heard. So I'm for inclusion for everyone.
I'll make my choice.
Even better.
So I think here I would say to include women, girls, women with disability into every single change, every aspect of it, not just as women and girls, but as agents for change.
Yeah.
Because we are people, just like our men counterparts.
That's right.
And we should not be viewed just because we are women and
Right.
we are marginalized, but we're just progressive that have a voice and brains.
Okay, so I know we've been talking a lot on this side of the room, so now is the Q&A time. There was a lot of response from you guys, so I hope you have a lot of questions. I would like to invite the panelists back. And I'm not sure if it's like that. Thank you. Okay, so up here, or you can ask a general question that anybody can choose to ask. So the floor is yours. We'll bring them. Right. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marisa from South Africa. Thank you to the young women. That's why we need to start passing the baton to you, so that you are the ones who are running around here. Thank you so much. And my question comes to myself. I just want to ask a question to my sister from Mozambique. Violence in churches. Violence against women in churches. What is your church or your community do when the men of the collar abuse women, particularly young girls during the Sunday school, whatever you can call it? We have such issues or incidents in South Africa where you find maybe it's the man of the collar himself who's a perpetrator. Like I like what you said earlier. If it's a woman who's pregnant, young girl, what happened to the man? He stays in the church. And what happens to the young boy? So I mean to the young girl, those are things, what strategies? Now bring it to you as a sister from home. What strategies do you have in place to protect our young women at the church? Because it's all over. It's not only in South Africa or in SADC, it's all over. Where you find the men of the collar are abusing women. I won't go to name one of the bishops, pregnant nuns, and it was quiet. Nobody talks about it. So what do we do about that?
We'll take a couple more questions so we can answer a few at a time. Any other questions? Yes, we'll get to the people online as well.
Thank you very much. Every time I'm from Ecumenical Women, Africa. And maybe I'm too ambitious, I don't know. We are
talking about involvement of women and girls in technology, which is very good. But I was thinking since yesterday, yesterday during the address, I get that in 5 to 10 years to come, digital way for all, especially young girls who are still growing and they want to see many years to come. But how much is this likely to cost, especially when you consider there are ordinary women in the rural area? A young girl, in the morning I attended a phone of my own. Get this topic. What is she going to do to get that phone? To have her own gadget, especially smartphone. Again, to the panel. I don't know in other countries, but in Zimbabwe, you used to see very, very intelligent students. But now, most parents are complaining that because of this smartphone, they are not average. They are not very intelligent now because they are sharing their time. Half time on the gadget, the other time on books. So what is happening, especially to young girls? What is the story which now have some negative? It's very good to use technology, but what about this negative, especially to young people?
Thank you. Do we have a question from online folks?
Sorry, we're having a technical issue with right now, but I haven't seen any come through yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question. Yes, yes.
I need this. All right. Technology is wonderful and it's great. Now I look at the young women here and then I look at our intergenerational. How can we make sure that technology that we are striving for will not suddenly turn into something dark? There's social media playing a big part in human trafficking. So how do we ensure that our young women, when they're on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever they're doing, that they understand that could be an underbelly that they may get swooped up into and not be aware?
So I'll allow maybe 30 seconds for anyone and those who are directed questions to respond, including online. Do you want to start, Nala, and then we'll come back to you?
She can't hear you. Because our camera's having. So what I'm gonna, okay, here's what this camera again now. But so what I'm gonna ask you to do, Patricia, is repeat the questions that our audience has asked. If you can remember all of them.
We'll start in the room.
Okay, yeah, we'll start in the room, and then when we get to you, Nala, apologies for our technical issues. We'll make sure that you get a chance to hear the questions before we make you answer them.
Yeah, no worries. I think I was able to catch them because I had full volume up, particularly the last one about the dangers to women and girls. So we can start in the room, or I'm okay, awesome.
We'll
I think
start in the room first though, okay?
Yeah,
And then we'll
sounds good.
switch to you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Question directed to you. Okay. So thank you so much for the question. So what we do as a church, if we're not able to solve this issue to the down, then we call
I can touch base on the dark side of technology. So technology is designed, it has a psychological component to it, and it also has a systems component to it. So it is actually designed to keep you hooked and to keep you going, right? They actually hire psychologists at like Facebook, Instagram, that are sitting there and they're constantly reviewing the brain and what keeps people engaged. And that's where your smart devices have the microphone. So it's not like they're really listening, but they're listening because you start talking about food and then food pops up in your algorithms. Is because of the microphones on your phone. To start thinking about ways to protect every system, every social media platform has privacy and protective features that you can go look at and set, either for your children, for yourself, for people who are able to search you. So you can begin to block out certain search engines or certain people from seeing you, which would stop you from even getting the invitation or getting the insight or getting the spam, right? So you just have to know what feature we're talking about, what app you're talking about, and then we can dive into like which one is hiding which, or which one allows you to do this. The most dangerous one though, guys, is TikTok. In case you didn't know that, TikTok is worldwide. It's really extremely dangerous, but it's great, it's fun. So that's why it's kind of hard to try to get kids off of TikTok. And the dangers again behind it, but the dangers behind it is they're not intentionally doing harm to you, they're really following your algorithms. It's all a system, it's all a big computer brain that's sitting there figuring out what you like or what you happen to stop and look at for longer than 3 seconds. So that's really what it is. So like you can scroll and you just stop and like, what is this? And you go off, and the next thing you know, they're always in your feed, is because they picked up on the fact that that's what you want to watch. I think that we should educate our young girls and women about the dangers, right? Because online dating is a $1 billion industry, and it does actually work for some, but it can contribute to trafficking, right? Because you can end up talking to somebody online, and some people are still getting like catfished, and then you end up like meeting the person, and then you end up being taken. So I think we have to start talking about the risk of that. But again, all the apps, because they got enough lawsuits, they all say like, don't meet this person if you don't know them. So it does give the warning sign to the person on the app. It's just that the person then decides that they feel comfortable enough to do so. So I think a lot of education has to go into each individual app in order to do so. And I think that kind of hits your question when you talk about how smartphones are making us dumb, right? So, all right, so, and that's mostly because it goes back to the algorithms. All of these tech companies, they make money the longer you're on the device. And so what they do is they keep giving like little features to make it seem like they really care. Like for example, your iPhone tells you the amount of hours or time you spend per app, per category. They just did that to say, well, it's really you, right? And that's what they're saying to you. You're the one scrolling. I'm just letting you know how long you scroll, but they're not taking into account that you're doing this on purpose to keep me engaged. So a lot of it goes into understanding these algorithms and these apps. And then if anybody likes YouTube, there's a documentary called Social Dilemma. It literally breaks all of it down and how it impacts you.
Yes, go ahead. Whoever wants to respond.
So for me, I think like if we have more students like grade 1 and are using smartphone, I think it would be best maybe as parents to at least monitor what our children do. Even you can regulate the time the child spends using their device. Also back in Kenya, we have day schools and boarding schools. So if our child is in boarding school, maybe, as I had said earlier, maybe we can have a specific teacher, let's say the computer teacher, who can be on standby just to monitor what the children are doing. Yeah, thank you. But if we have supervision, that would be a great help for our children.
Just to add to that, just
not just, learning about what your next career is, but learning how to properly use this tool. And the tools that can help us do more than just social media. Making us feel dumb. Yes. I think on that conversation, us talking to other classes, saying, hey, don't just be on Twitter. We can also use it for other things. Here, thank you, right? Yes, here, yeah.
10 seconds? You get the last word.
Well, no, we need Nala.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we able to?
Yes, we're.
Okay.
So
There's a next event here, so we have to back in.
yeah, I want to be able to get Nala to respond as well.
Yo pienso que, bueno, he estado pensando en toda una ¿cómo nosotros vamos a poder incluirnos a los grupos en esta cultura? How are you going to make sure that all top social media y en realidad nosotros sí deberíamos concientización necesaria de lo que nos mandan hacer sobre el development, sobre los empleos. And it's really important for us to be included in these conversations because of the answers that la razón para una joven, para una niña, es muy difícil escuchar a una mujer. And sometimes it's really hard to just only listen to masculine y necesitan escuchar una voz de nosotros como una hija o la única manera de nosotros podernos incluir en esos altos rangos es hacer reflexionar a las personas. Pero ¿cómo lo hacemos? Termino. Pero ¿cómo lo hacemos? La única manera en que puedan cambiar pues, mis padres y otros que me alrededor es demostrar que yo puedo realizar este trabajo.
And I want to recognize our translator, Erin Brown. I'm so sorry, Nana, we'll get back to you, but they're waiting for us to back in. I appreciate everyone, and I hope you learned something today. And people will be around, so if you have follow-up questions, feel free to